So the topic of our today's panel with the speakers is integration of veterans in the civil life after they come back, the world's coaching experience. Oh, everything works, so it's great. Thank you so much. Thank you. And today we have three speakers that have honored us with their presence and will share their experience with us. The first one will be Shiri Ben-Arzi from Israel. She's PMC coach, MCC ICF. She's founder, director, and master trainer at Medical Coaching Institute, and she will be the first one to share her knowledge and experience with us because she has time only until 6 p.m. Ukrainian time. I do remember about that. After Shiri, we will listen to the presentation of Fenton Reese from USA and Luciana Paulise from USA. I will also introduce them more. After the first speaker will have the presentation done. So thank you so much for joining us. Shiri, I know that you are here, and I give the word to you. Please join.
Thank you. Спасибо.
Дякуємо.
Okay, so I have 15 minutes, so I'm going to do that quickly. I don't know if we have time for Q&A, but let's try. And I want to address the return of veterans home after combat. And I'm actually addressing times when people come back from active combat service back home and they need to integrate. In my little presentation, I'm actually going to talk about the actual veterans, and I'm going to talk about their family members, because I think that helping them reintegrate into society, we need to address their caregivers, their family members. So what I'm going to do is I want to create awareness about the specific challenges, okay? About the specific challenges that we as coaches need to pay attention to, we need to be aware of, because these challenges are challenges that these clients are dealing with, and they might not be completely aware. So it's our job, as we hold a very safe space, also to be aware of those aspects that might be invisible. So the first thing I want to talk about is the shift from combat state of mind into routine state of mind. And we're talking about two different operational modes. We have people that for a long period of time or a shorter period of time were in survival mode. Okay, in terms of the nervous system, they were in overactivation. They were hypervigilant. They were they were living and functioning in an environment that was full of danger. They had no idea whether or not they were going to survive the next day. And coming out of that back into society or into civilian lives, they are shifting from one polarity to another polarity. What we need to remember is there is a gap between these two operational states. Bridging the gap is not intuitive at all. Bridging the gap, if we want to do it intuitive and without support, might take a long time and might be very impacted by the experience a person had while they were in combat. Okay, so we need to remember there is a gap here. It needs to be bridged. So it needs to be bridged on a few levels. This is what we need to remember as coaches as we are addressing this bridge, because this is our role. When we are coaching clients that have been in active duty and they need help reintegrating, basically what they're asking from us is, coach, help me create that bridge. So here's what we need to pay attention to. First of all, there are specific, unique experiences that took place in combat, okay? They are unique to that part of their lives. These experiences do not exist in civilian lives. They need to be processed. They need to be processed in terms of meaning. They need to be processed in terms of identity. They need to be processed in terms of the belief system. They need to be processed in terms of values. Combat zone present to us a lot of dilemmas in terms of identity. Who am I? In terms of belief system, I don't believe this should be like this. I cannot believe I did that. I cannot believe this is the world. I cannot believe this is what I'm seeing. And also conflicts on a value of levels, okay? So we need to pause before talking about what are you going to do next. We need to pause, open a safe space to just process these information, these experiences. These experiences are going to hold in them a lot of emotions, which means that we as coaches need to upgrade our skill set to be able to hold a safe space for emotional chaos. Emotional chaos holds rage, not just anger. It holds depression, not just sadness. It holds guilt, and it holds shame, and it holds anxiety, and it holds confusion to the level of disorientation, and it holds despair. It holds so much. We need to be able to reframe that. We need to be able to help our clients regulate their emotional state and really offer them two things that need to be custom made, custom tailored to their experience. One has to do with resilience and emotional agility, okay? It looks different for different people. And the other thing has to do with self-care. Self-care is the key here. Self-care is the thing that's going to create sustainability to that bridge from combat into civilian lives. There's a lot of grief that they experienced. They lost friends, they lost people, and they lost a part of themselves. We need to hold a safe space for them to grieve. So one invitation is get some additional training in the field of grief coaching. But even if you don't, know this: grief needs to be witnessed and named. Okay, we know how to grieve. Okay, even when we're overwhelmed, but grief needs a space. It needs to be named. What have I lost? What am I grieving? Okay, and it needs to be witnessed, meaning there's someone there seeing me grieving in a way that is aligned with my values, okay, and holding a safe space for me, because I am not my grief. I am processing grief, okay? So those are the things that need to be processed. As we are creating that bridge, the thing that we need to focus on is executive functions. So executive functions are all of those cognitive and mental processes that allow us to be the executives of our lives, allow us to manage our lives. Executive functions are time management, resource management, task initiation, working memory, stress management, emotional regulation, prioritizing, okay? There's a whole list of executive functions. We as coaches know how to coach our clients around executive functions, but we might need support in the form of supervision or additional trainings to know how to meet these clients where they are, because they have been functioning on a completely different set of executive functions, and help them reacclimate themselves, okay? And fit those executive functions to where they are right now, so those executive functions can become a bridge. So the bridge is the executive functions and the process of emotionally processing the experience that they went through. In that context, we're going to need to use a lot of reframing, a lot of safe space, because what they're going through is not normal, but they need to know two things. First of all, that as they are struggling, and they are struggling to reintegrate and cross that bridge, whatever they're going through, two reframes I want to offer you. First reframe is that whatever they're going through is a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. War is not normal, guys. And the second reframe I offer you is that it's okay not to be okay. The fact that I'm not okay right now says nothing about the self, says nothing about who I am. It says a lot about what I am going through right now, and I am going through a transition. Okay? So having that said, I want to pause that, and I want to talk about their family members. Because if we really want to help those people integrate back and cross that bridge, we need to know that their main support system is not going to be the government. It's not going to be social services. Oftentimes, it's going to be their family members. Now, here's the thing. They are meeting a family that has no idea what they went through. Even if they know cognitively, they were not there. Meaning, when they come home to what used to be a safe space, a space where they shared with people that knew exactly who they were, okay? They are now coming back to a space where the people that live there actually have no idea what they went through. And they now have a part of their personality that their family members doesn't know, okay? And that part might be transparent, might not, by the way, which means that the family members meets them knowing that there's a part, there's a major experience here that the family did not share. And the family can only imagine what it was like. Now, if the person shares the experience and communicates with the family members, that's going to be very helpful. But oftentimes, remember that gap we talked about? The experience is so overwhelming, it's beyond words. Being an Army veteran myself, I was an officer in the IDF. Oftentimes when I coach veterans, they say, you know what I mean, you've been there. And I say, I do, because the experience is so beyond words. I remember a few years ago, I was coaching an Army veteran from Argentina. He fought in the Falkland Wars. The first thing I did when I sat down and coached him was give him my military serial number. He looked at me and he said, thank God, someone that can understand. Okay, there's something about that experience that almost cannot be named and explained to someone that wasn't there. And family members are not always aware of that. They really want to know, they want to hug, they want to hold a safe space, and they feel helpless. That helplessness causes a lot of stress. Now we have the Army veterans coming back into the family, still processing the emotions, still struggling. A lot of the grief that hasn't been processed, a lot of these emotions that haven't been processed, you know, while they were in combat, are starting to come out in various ways in the family, at home. And one thing that we need to be aware of is that these can be potential triggers for the family, and this can potentially cause secondary traumatization to the family members. So secondary traumatization is trauma that is caused when we witness someone else either going through a traumatic experience or dealing with the aftermath of trauma. So now we have a group that is at risk of developing secondary traumatization, and this group is the main support system of our veteran. Okay, so this group being the main support system of our veteran, and I didn't even mention a situation where our veteran actually comes back injured and they need medical care and they need medical rehabilitation, or they've been diagnosed with PTSD and they need therapeutic intervention and therapeutic treatment. Basically, we have a group of people that all of a sudden, out of the blue, have become caregivers. Now, here's the thing about caregivers. It's a full-time job. You never get training for it. You never get support, and you never get supervision. I coach a lot of caregivers, and one of my clients a few years ago told me that when she became a caregiver for a family member, it was as if she got a second job, okay? And when she got that second job, it was like she was told, welcome to the job. This is your office. This is your phone. Congratulations, you're on your own. And that's how it feels for family members. The isolation, the loneliness, and the stress are immense. And these people are very much at risk for developing chronic stress, burnout, and compassion fatigue. So I'm going to pause here and see if there are any questions. I also want to say, because the time is short and I have to leave early, I'm going to put my contact information in the chat. So if you want to write to me later and chat with me, I'm available. I promise to answer. So you have my email, my Facebook, and my LinkedIn. So I hope we have time for questions.
Wow, I want to say my thank you for this condensed presentation. It was so clear, so condensed, and I do feel that you have an experience that you share from your side, understanding the whole picture. I'm writing down all the notes. It's just incredible. We would like to open for several questions before you leave us, because your experience, I feel there is so much importance that we can get from it there. I do actually have my question, can I? Until we're waiting for others. Where is that border between coaching and psychotherapy in this case? Because you are saying that there is a lot of emotional competence and that we have to upgrade ourselves as coaches to hold the space, to process the emotions. And usually we are taught not like, if people have traumas, please send them to psychotherapists. But if we start working with people like this, do you mean that we become somewhere in the middle between coaching and psychotherapy, and we have to integrate those skills?
Well,
or we can apply those professions still?
Yes and no. Yes and no. So on the one hand, I want to say that coaching is expanding and having a dialogue with other methodologies. So, I think that, coaching is finding its way to have a dialogue with therapy. Having said that, coaching has its boundaries and therapy has its boundaries. So coaching is coaching, therapy is therapy. Now, there are certain things that do not belong in coaching in any shape or form. Complex trauma is one of them, not for coaching, okay? But there are certain situations where you have specific traumatic memories that have a very, very specific context. For example, a medical context, okay? Or a war zone context, and it's not a complex trauma. It has a beginning, middle, and end. You can address that experience using coaching tools. Having said that, you need additional training. You need trauma awareness training. So if you don't have that in your toolbox, don't come near it. Now, here's the thing. How do we differentiate? The rule of thumb is very simple. It has to do with a client's perception of self. Okay? So if we have a client that perceives him or herself as broken as a result of the trauma, and from the client's perspective, this is an injury that cannot be healed, and this injury has changed who this person is in the world, I would say this client probably is not coachable. However, if we have a client that says, I went through a crisis, however, I am not broken. I have a very clear sense of self. However, I'm struggling giving this event meaning, and I am struggling with the emotional regulation, and I'm struggling with the emotional agility of it. And I need more tools because I can see myself in a place where this has been processed and integrated, and I have myself. I'm connected again to my center, and core of who I am. That person is coachable. Okay, so that is a very, very clear distinction between the two. Other than that, guys, we have the ICF Code of Ethics, which is the lighthouse that guides us on our path, and the guidelines there are very, very clear.
Thank you so much for this clarification. And I would like also to highlight the importance that you have mentioned, that families have to receive support, because out of sudden, this thing is very social, and the family is the one that is processing all the things, disregarding they want it or don't. And I myself, I'm an ex-wife of the Afghanistan veteran. And now I understand, after your talk, I understand what I have been through, not understanding a bit of what could I do about it, and that I should have received support and supervision. And this is a very big thing that maybe we have to discuss more. Not only how to integrate the veterans, but how to prepare the families to support the veterans.
I personally believe that one cannot go without the other, because I think if we neglect the family, we're not creating a sustainable process for the veteran. And we're actually putting an entire group of people at risk. And that's not fair because they need help.
Thank you so much. So maybe here we are talking not about coaching the veterans, but also like having the coaching support to the families of veterans as a separate system. Thank you so much for that.
Pleasure.
It was a very condensed presentation. I'm very impressed. Thank you so much. I am aware of the timing. So we let you go. If you can stay with us, please stay. But we also let you go because we have two other brilliant speakers that I want to introduce right now and give the place to Fenton Reese from the USA. Fenton is the US Marine Corps veteran with 30 years of experience in service. He is founder and coach at Veterans Coaching Project. Fenton, please share your experience with us. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, first, I'd like to say thank you for having me. And quite frankly, I want Shiri to be my coach. Everything she had to say resonated with me. So you can be my coach anytime. Like you mentioned, I served 30 years, 7 months, and 2 days in the United States Marine Corps. So I've seen multiple deployments, just put it at that. Once I transitioned, I realized if you do not have a plan, you're probably going to struggle. And it doesn't matter what level you were in the military, you're going to struggle. Now, here's some of the things that I faced and I see most veterans facing. First of all, when you transition, it is a culture shock, right? When you join the military, you typically join at the most impressionable stage of your life. You're young, you may not have experienced much in life, and then you join the military, and now you become conditioned to that environment, which is definitely a culture shock. You serve, you deploy, you transition. That might be 5 years, 10 years, 20, 30 years later. It's another culture shock because you have to, one, regain your identity. And I heard Shiri say that. Prior to joining the military, you had an identity, whoever you were. When you joined the military, now you became another identity. You received a rank, you received a title, and as you got promoted and you moved up the ladder, your assignments became broader, etc. So you had that identity. Imagine being in the military, for example, as long as I was, and you have this certain identity within the military structure. Then you transition, you are no longer that person. Whatever you learned, you have to now learn a new set of skills. You have to regain your identity and determine who you are now going forward and who you want to be. And then how do you fit in? So some of the things that I think veterans face when they transition, most of them are coming back to the environment that they came from. They do not have a professional network because they have not been out here. They probably lack experience, academic credentials, certifications that they're going to need to compete in the environment when they come back. They probably lack a strong support structure, which is why a lot of them joined in the first place. And then, more importantly, they don't really know what they want to be when they grow up. Because as I said, prior to joining the military, you didn't have a lot of experience. Now, Shiri mentioned the spouses and caregivers. Part of what we do at the Veterans Coaching Project is we also coach the spouse and the caregiver. We give them the same attention that we give the veteran. Because as far as we're concerned, the veteran or service member could not have done what they did without the support of their spouse and the sacrifices of their spouses and caregivers. So we take that in consideration. You're just as much a part of that military family as that service member. So we treat them the same. So let's talk about this culture shock, right? It can be psychological. It can be philosophical. It can be emotional. It can be economic. The problem is when you were serving in the military, you had structure, you had a chain of command, and you had a certain culture. Now, when you transition, you don't have that support structure around you. So you have to figure all that out, and then you have to know how to leverage that structure. So what we tend to do is we build a structure within our program. So our coaches become, when you join the military and you have to go to your training, you get a drill instructor or a platoon sergeant or platoon commander, so small unit leader, someone who kind of guides you through your experiences, and they teach you and they develop you and they mentor you. The coach replaces that person when they transition. So what we try to do is first help the veteran regain their identity, figure out who they want to be, what they want to be. Then the next step for us is to figure out what resources they need. So if during a coaching session, the veteran says, you know what, I'm struggling with housing, I need that. We have created what we call a veteran resource ecosystem, where we have partners who take care of that. So what we do is we don't task the coach with providing that service or trying to figure that out. We connect the veteran directly to that professional organization, who then will take that veteran and help them solve their problem. So if it's a mental health issue, we will connect them directly to a mental health professional. We will not ask the coach to do something that's clearly out of their capability. Not that our coaches are not highly qualified, but we don't want to put the coach or the veteran in that position. We try to keep it as simple as possible. Then the next step, we help the veteran develop a plan, because without a plan to execute, it's not going to happen. I think the mistake that a lot of people make, and I'm saying at least in the United States, is that when you transition from the military, you're ready to go. You can go look for a job and you're ready to go. I don't believe that. I believe the gap exists in the preparation phase. I think the gap exists as soon as you transition. You have to get your mind right. The military doesn't just take you and put you in the military right off the street. They put you through training. They indoctrinate you. They prepare you. Well, to me, you need the same type of indoctrination or preparation once you transition. So our coaches focus on helping the veteran fill in those gaps. We try to find out what the missing pieces are. We also do group coaching. So in addition to the one-on-one sessions, the veterans get together as a group and then they talk about the challenges they face. Now there's a difference. Our group coaching is not run like a venting session, if you will. It's the veterans talking about the challenges they face, and they have a lot in common. We build community that way. The veterans exchange ideas and thoughts, so they're participating in their own growth, in their own improvement. The goal is to help the veteran develop the confidence and the competence to compete in society. I'll give you an example. When you join the military, they give you a military occupational specialty. They train you to do something, and then you do it for 4 years, 5 years, however long it takes. The problem is when you transition, what is going to be your job or your occupation or whatever it is you choose to do? Because whatever that is, you're going to need to develop the skill set in order to gain the experience, in order to perform in that occupation. So here's what happens. You come out of the military, your confidence is up here. It's at an all-time high. You've been in combat, you've led men and women, you've saved lives, etc. And you had a job that you were competent at. You've been doing it for the past 5 years. The problem is when you transition, you may not be doing that particular job, and you're starting over, or you're trying to figure it out. Over a period of time, what will happen to your confidence if you don't develop confidence? Your confidence will begin to wane. So what we try to do is help identify that skill, that thing that the vet wants to do. We help them develop a plan to achieve that objective. And we actually build a timeline, how long it's going to take, what resources you need, what certifications, how are you going to pay for it? We figure all that out so the veteran doesn't have to worry about trying to Google this and Google that. We help them put the plan together. What that does is that helps sustain the confidence. And now once the veteran sees they have a plan and they can execute this plan and it's reasonable and they can do it in a timely manner, they now have a purpose. So now their competence begins to improve and increase. So you have that confidence and you sustain that competence and that confidence. What we want is not for the veteran to require our services. What we want is for the veteran to stand on their own 2 feet. What we want is for the veteran to take charge of their own destiny. What we want is for the veteran to transition, go through the program, regain their identity, figure out what they want to be, learn how to network, learn their value add. We leverage what they already brought to the table that they learned in the military, and then what they need to take their game to the next level. We put it all together in a plan. We challenge the vet. We test them just like they would do if they were in the military. You go through training, you get challenged. We want to see what your competency is. We want to see what you retained. Here's what I found out. If you don't have a purpose and you don't have anything to do when you transition and you don't figure things out and you don't have a plan, you're going to start thinking about things that you probably ought to get away from. Now, some things you can't help it. And if you need therapy, we definitely point them towards that direction. But what we found is if you focus on the next phase of your life, and this is where coaching is so important. If you focus on what you want to be, if you focus on who you are, what you do, how you do it, and why you do it, and you have a plan, all of a sudden you're confident. I'll give you a couple of examples. We've had veterans come to us who had no idea what they wanted to do once they transitioned. They work with our coaches. We start with that whole regain your identity, who you are. And we let them know it's great to be proud of your service. It's great to appreciate it. But you have to now focus on what are the next steps. So let's focus on who you want to be. You learn your value proposition. You learn exactly who you are, what makes you tick. Because some of them never figured that out even before they joined the military, because they joined when they were young. So they never figured out who they were. They joined the military. I joined at 17. Do you really know who you are at 17? I mean, think about it. I joined at 17. I spent my entire adult life in the Marine Corps. So I never had an opportunity to really figure out who I wanted to be. But once I transitioned and I started thinking about that, it made a lot of sense to me because I knew I didn't want to live that military life. I didn't want to be in that culture anymore. And I didn't want a job that was close to what I did in the military. I just didn't. I wanted to become independent. I wanted to do my own thing, and I wanted to make my mark in society. So I think as a coach, right, you develop that bond of empathy with your client. You establish that trust. Your client begins to open up. Think about what your client is looking for. They want to thrive in this new environment. They want to compete for opportunities. I've seen so many veterans, they are underemployed simply because they don't believe they can compete for certain opportunities. They don't try because they don't have a plan. So we emphasize that. Believe, have confidence, think big, do not think small. Not only do you have the opportunity to take charge of your life, but you have the opportunity to impact society and serve your country in another capacity. And for those who have never served in the armed forces, what we like to tell them is if you feel uncomfortable because this is a new type of coaching engagement, I want you to look at it this way. What we tell them is, when you help a veteran, by extension, you are serving your country, because to help them is to be doing your part. The last thing I want to talk about is, once the veteran has that plan and they know what they want to do and they begin to execute and you begin to see the changes, the next thing we do is put them in an environment with potential employers who are looking to hire vets. We want them to test the skills, the newfound skills, the interview skills. We want them to be able to customize a resume. We want them to be able to present themselves. And so we challenge them that way. Some vets who want to start a business, we help them figure that out. We've had vets come to us, they wanted to start a business, they didn't know how to start. The coach pointed them towards the basics of starting a business, strategy, business plan, and we've had veterans go on to start a business. And I'm telling you, when you see the transformation, when you see them embrace it, your heart will be full. And here's what I want you to, another thing I want to make clear. The assumption is that a lot of veterans are damaged goods because they've seen things that you shouldn't see. But I will tell you this, these are highly capable people. They thrived in that environment. They rose to the occasion. They can adapt. They're flexible. They know how to do that. And to me, that's what you leverage. They know strategy, tactics. They know leadership. If you do not highlight the skills they acquired and developed in the military, they begin to feel inadequate because everything is technical. I'm telling you, they bring a lot to the table. It's just a matter of saying, okay, we know what you bring. Now what we're going to do is help you upskill and acquire skills that you may or may not have. We're going to put it together in a plan, and then we're going to help you execute. Bottom line, you will thrive. You will become captains of industry. You will become educators. You will become political leaders. You will lead. You will thrive, and you will help others. Ladies and gentlemen, that's pretty much how I see it.
Thank you so much, Fenton, for your experience. I just realized that you are a veteran with such many years, more than 30 years of experience, who have become an example, living example of this leadership. I've gone through this experience and I've adapted in the society, and I've become a leader who helps others to go through this experience. And I would like to encourage all the participants to put your questions to Fenton or Luciana, who will be talking next, in the chat, because we may, if you will have these questions during next 10-15 minutes, we'll come back to them, because Fenton, please stay with us. Do not run away. I know that you have save some time for us. Your experience is just precious. I do have a question that I would like to, just to open for several minutes. Now, just two questions. One is, how long is this program operating? Is it like 1 year that people have to go through? Or is it like 3 months, 6 months, 2 years? And who is paying for that? Where is the funding coming from? Is it states? Is it personal funds of the veterans, or some organizations who fund this program?
Great question. Well, first things first, veterans, it's all free. It's free for veterans, spouses, and caregivers. We do not charge them a dime. The coaches, all of our coaches, we have partnerships through NYU, New York University, Rice University, and Rutgers University. So all of our coaches are volunteers. They're experienced coaches, and they want to give back. So it's all pro bono. Most of our team are all volunteers. So funding comes from, obviously, government sources, private sponsors, corporations, etc. The program, we generally recommend to the veteran a minimum of 6 to 8 weeks for the process. But we do it in a cohort model. But what we're doing is we're going to add a few more weeks. So we're going out to 12 weeks, 3 months. We're going to put them through what we call a transition boot camp. There are 3 phases to it. The first phase is the enable phase. That's the psychological component, the coaching. That lasts about a month, as I stated. Then you graduate to the second phase, which is the empower phase. The empower phase is the professional development. We have a partner, Korn Ferry, so we have a digital coaching platform, and we require the veterans to go in there, and we have a list, a curriculum of courses we want the veteran to take. And then the last phase is the elevate phase. That's where you develop your plan and then you execute. You continue to build capacity. Now, keep in mind, your coach is guiding you through this process the entire time. So by the time you get to the elevate phase, you've regained your identity. You know what you want to be. You've developed professional skills. You've created a plan. Now you're executing and you're continuing to build capacity. And then the final step is we do what we call a career exploration seminar, where we bring you together in an intimate session with certain companies, and we like to match the companies like we match the coaches with the vets. It's based on background, it's based on interest, and then the coaches say we're looking for people with these skills. Now we've prepared the vet to go in there and compete. So that's kind of what it is. It's a transition boot camp. It's everything in the military in reverse. It's designed to prepare you now to go compete.
Great. It's so great to hear that you're in 3 months and people can receive 3 stages that really give them the opportunity to empower themselves, elevate, and get the career understanding of what they want to do next. For me, it sounds like a very intense and very thought through process.
I will add, we say when you're VCP, Veterans Coaching Project for short, you're VCP for life. So our coaches and our veterans are allowed to come back and do it again and again and again. So a few 6 months down the road, because we do a series of surveys to gather feedback. So we do a mid-survey, an exit survey, and then 6 months down the road, we do another survey to see how you're doing and if what we taught you is helping you. We continue to provide you resources through our ecosystem. So if the veteran says, you know what, I need to come back and sharpen these skills, they're welcome to come back. We'll assign them a coach, and then they continue to progress. We think it benefits the vet, it benefits the company, and it also benefits society.
Great. Sounds great. Thank you so much. And we do have a question in the chat. I'll read it aloud. What were the organizational difficulties encountered in implementing the project, the program, specifically in terms of approval and coordination?
To be honest, I'm a Marine, right? So I combine military strategy with business acumen to produce precision results. When I initially transitioned from the military, I went to business school. So first I got an MBA, and then during the pandemic, I went back to school and got a Master of Science in Organizational Consulting and in coaching, executive coaching. So I convinced the faculty to allow me to create a pilot program, and all I did was I just got my classmates to volunteer. They needed hours for coaching to become certified and gain experience. I already had a network with veteran organizations through my efforts there, so I just brought the two together. So all of my networks with various veteran organizations, they supply the veterans. Veterans refer each other. The coaches who we started out with NYU, then all of a sudden, various chapters in hear this, the ICF chapters in New York, New Jersey, Arizona heard about us. So they said, we want in. So some of their coaches started volunteering. Rice University heard about us. They have a coaching program. Rutgers University heard about us. They have a coaching program. And so all of a sudden now it started coming together. The greatest challenge for us was to be able to manage the cohorts. We keep them small, 10 to 15, so they're manageable, but we're capable through technology to run multiple cohorts. It also comes with the technology comes with a mobile app. So we can actually provide our services to a veteran. They could be in Ukraine, they could be in Ouagadougou, South Africa, and they say, you know what, when I leave the military, I'm going to transition in 6 months. So we begin them in the plan. We put them in the cohort, and then we follow them through that phase. I think the program sells itself. It's the right thing to do. I think that what we have done as a differentiator, we have figured out how to operationalize the transition process, which even the government has not figured out how to do. We figured out how to do that. And then it's the depth of services. I think it's the depth of involvement, the breadth of services, and then it's the ongoing commitment to the vet that gives us our competitive advantage. So it's just a matter of getting in front of organizations and presenting it. We've organized it so we have a veteran ecosystem. We have a research center. We archive all things pertaining to veterans, metrics, statistics, data. So we know everything we need to know. We know where they're at geographically. And then we also archive all things pertaining to coaching and coaching veterans, and we archive that. So we do a lot of coaching development for our coaches. So it's a two-pronged attack.
Wow, there are two things that I heard which really amazed me. First, you didn't need to get approvals. You organized, you got an idea, and you organized resources, volunteers, universities, everything that you needed without going the official or the right way. You organized that project by from idea, involving all the stakeholders. And this is something that we can learn in Ukraine. We do not need to go the official ways. We can just get the idea, get the colleagues, get the universities, whoever wants to help. And then the idea may be more productive than if we go official ways and wait for some approvals that were in the question. And then I also heard that you said that we in Ukraine can use the application that you have in the US and your experience. Is that right? Is there a space for cooperation?
What we wanted, and so you know, June 1st, we've deliberately flown under the radar so that we could cross the T's and dot the I's. So on June 1st, our website, our social media goes live, and we will be able to take applications directly from our website. So any person who goes to our website, coaches or veterans who wants to sign up, they're going to be able to do that. We'll have to work out the translation part. We haven't figured that out yet, but I'm glad I was on this call because I'd like to be able to offer our services globally.
Wow, actually with the AI translation thing today, nowadays, everything can be translated so live easily, and talks and text. So I think even the access that you said, that it is possible to access all the knowledge, all the practices, all the understanding of what and how to prepare the coaches, how to access the veterans, and how to actually maybe connect the coaches from US to the veterans in Ukraine. This could be a start of the global expansion of your project from this talk.
We can call it VCP Ukraine, right? So we have VCP in the Ukraine, and we have coaches from the Ukraine coaching veterans from the Ukraine using our model.
I don't know what Irina Zolotarevich is now thinking, but I'm here sitting like, wow, wow, wow. This is a gem of our today's meeting. This is a big opportunity that could be used actually, and the knowledge could be expanded. And I feel that there is a lot of energy behind it. Oh,
Yes.
thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
I'm reminded about time. We have to transition to Luciana. Thank you very much, Fenton. It was a very valuable experience that you shared with us and an opening to the new opportunities.
Thank
So I'm really happy to present our next speaker. It's Luciana Paulise or Paulise, how to say? What is correct?
Yeah, Paulise, that's fine.
Paulise, okay.
Yeah, yes, you can call me Lucy, it's easier.
Yeah, Luciana is also from the USA. And she's a career coach. She's a speaker. She's a book author, founder of Biztorming Training and Consulting LLC, and also the We Culture LLC. She's also an MBA, ICF professional certified coach, ICQ certified quality engineer, Agile coach, and Scrum master. And her talk today will be around coaching veterans for self-compassion. Luciana, please.
Yes, thank you for inviting me. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Wonderful. All right. Well, when I was listening to Fenton, really, I felt that this was like a great transition, what I'm going to talk about, because what I want to talk about is the during, right? During, what I mean is what happens during that transition that he mentioned, right? When you get back your you become a veteran, you need to define this plan, this purpose. What happens during that time? Because you have to be patient, right? You don't know what's going to happen. You know if it's going to work for you. You have all these thoughts in your head. And one thing that I learned so much, that it was super useful when I started to become a coach, is to be self-compassionate. And it's so simple, but it's really hard for us to be compassionate, especially in the European culture, right? With all these wars that you've been through, you learn to be tough, right? You learn to go through everything and just keep moving. But sometimes you don't forgive yourself for maybe needing more time, or for needing, I don't know, things that maybe you just don't ask, right? So it's so important to learn about self-compassion. And when I learned about it, I just realized, I started crying, right? I started crying because I realized I could forgive myself for not being perfect, for not doing things the way I wanted, for not achieving all the things I wanted to achieve at the time I wanted, for all the expectations that you have. And I imagine that as a veteran, or even you, Anastasia, you said you were a family of veterans. Is that right? I bet that you have a lot of things, that of expectations, a lot of things in your mind, and how do you adjust that, right? I bet that you have, like he said, Fenton talked about culture shock, identity adjustment, being sad, being frustrated, feeling guilty, right? It's all these emotions that you have. How do you regulate them? What do you do with them during this transition until you finally find your purpose, which is great? But there's a gap there. 6 months, 6 weeks. Maybe he said in 6 weeks you're right into this, journey. But what do you do during those first 6 weeks? So, what is about self-compassion? It's simple, but it's just about doing something that we've learned to do with others. Because we tend to be kinder to others. Imagine yourself like with your husband, with your partner, with your other people in the military that you've been with for so many years, for so many months. You learn to help them, to listen, you learn to listen to them, you learn to understand how they feel, to say, well, that's okay, you're gonna do it better next time. Oh, that's okay, it was okay, you don't need to do anything else. But how many times do we that to ourselves? Raise your hands if you ever do that to yourself. Sometimes, good, okay. That's great. Sometimes some of you may be doing it, but maybe we need to see how we can do that every day. You know, bring yourself, remind ourselves every day that we did something good that day. Maybe there was something, we just made our bed. We just cooked something. Maybe we won an award, right? So there are great things that can happen that day, but sometimes days are really, you know, normal days. I imagine that after you come back from war or from the military life, like now your days are so normal, right? So there's nothing to do, or there's not so many things to do. But how do you live with that? Just reminding yourself, just the same way that you do with others, just do it to yourself. Have this self-talk, this self-conversation saying, I know you feel sad. I know you feel frustrated. That's okay. It's fine. We're gonna get this done. We're gonna find a purpose. No expectations. Just don't get attached to something that you really want. Just go there, but slowly. Take your time. Forgive yourself. And let yourself be who you are. Does that make sense? I'd like to hear some of you if you have any questions about this, or if you have any thoughts, if you have any practices that you can recommend. I just recommend you to do that every day, or every time you feel fine, you feel bad, like you have that negative self-talk, try to bring the second one, positive talk, reminding yourself how good you are.
I would like to encourage our participants to put the questions in the chat and feedback to Luciana's questions. So maybe we have some ideas, but I do have a question for you, Luciana. How would you encourage to, how could this self-care, and self-compassion look in coaching mode? Do we like coach ourselves? Do we ask ourselves certain questions? Do you have any practices that you could share? How specifically it could look?
That's a good question, because I as a coach, I try to help my coaches to open this perspective. For most of them, this is totally new, right? But I think it's important that you can, like you said, kind of coach yourself, because you talk to the coach maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks, but what happens in the middle is also important, right? So how can you start regulating your own emotions? And on one way of doing it, so this is emotional intelligence, right? Trying to regulate first, understanding, acknowledging what you're going through. What's your emotion right now? Are you sad about something? Are you angry about something that you did not do? Are you thinking about anything that happened in the past, right? Okay, acknowledge that, and then try to regulate how you react to that. And yes, you can learn. You don't have to be a coach to coach yourself. That's the main skill that you can learn for yourself, to learn every day. And every time you feel bad, like I said before, ask yourself something good. This is kind of a ratio, right? When you have something bad, try to have at least a 3-to-1 ratio. So one bad thing, one bad thought, bring 3 positive. So if you have many bad thoughts, try to bring as many good thoughts as possible. Just remind yourself that you're good just because you made your bed. You're good just because you say hi to a friend, to your parents, your sisters, brothers, your siblings, anyone, right? Just try to think small, little things, that say thank you. Thank you, Lucy, for all you're doing. Thank you for being present today for this meeting, for taking the time to do this. Just do it to yourself. if you can validate yourself,
Mhm.
that's the greatest gift you can give to yourself. Does that make sense?
It does, of course, it does a lot. We as coaches may forget when we coach the clients, especially veterans, we may forget about compassion to ourselves. And you are reminding us that we have to be self-compassionate as coaches who provide support to other people. And I want to ask you regarding your experience, have you been helping as a coach to veterans, teaching them how to be self-compassionate to themselves? Because I suppose that this is a category of clients who have a lot of emotions, and it may be, maybe you could share some experience of, was it really successful for you to help them learn themselves how to be self-compassionate, or you have to spend like several months processing emotions before they start to be self-compassionate?
Yeah, I have to be honest, I've never coached a veteran, but I've coached a lot of different people with a lot of different issues, and it's kind of the same pattern, right? So that's why I focus on something that I know, which is forgiving ourselves for anything that we're doing, right? And being nice to ourselves. But I was super interested in the program that Fenton said that I want to be there, because I think it's an experience that we need to learn from different people, right? I think that I wrote an article about helping veterans because I think I research about them. So I think there's a lot of things that that we can still share about it, that I have to learn a lot. So even attending here, I'm learning, and that's why I'm also inviting you. If there's something that I'm saying that it's fine, you don't agree, it's part of this learning, but just know that we are all human beings and we all go through different experiences, but in the end, we have to be happy with ourselves and we have to validate ourselves, right?
Absolutely agree with you. And I think that you're a reminder now to us all, not only to do our work right, to know to build the systems, to involve people, to build up the methods, but don't forget about our own emotional health as coaches during the wartime. And this is something that we for sure forget when we are helping others. And we think that others need help more than we. And this is a very important reminder at the end of the day and at the end of our panel discussion. Thank you.
I don't know if you've heard this. We use it in coaching very much, that when you're in a plane, you always have to put the mask first before putting it to your kids, even though your kids, the people you love the most, right? But you need to be able to feel fine, to feel confident, to be able to help others. So
absolutely agree. This is like safety rule to serve people longer and more effectively. Don't forget about self-compassion and provide support to the supporting system that will be helping others to sustain the country. Thank you very much. Thank you.